A while back, I did a video on woman's wall, where when they hit the wall somewhere in their 30s, they suddenly become less attractive, and we had some discussions about that, and it was very interesting. Today, I'm going to talk about the fact that men have a wall. What? Yes, men have a wall. No, they don't. Men are perfect at all times. Fuck you. Yes, men have a wall. It's very different than woman's wall. Men's wall don't make men less attractive. Men's wall just fucks up their lives. I will tell you what it is, and I will tell you how to avoid it. I am Caleb Jones. This is Alpha Male 2.0, freedom-focused lifestyle design for men, for you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. We do 5 videos a week here on how to make both your business life and woman life more free because you need both. We are also doing an online course giveaway right now. This is my online course on how you can develop your own location-independent income. Something I'm able to do because I'm in Dubai right now and no dip in income while I'm gone. I'm here almost a month. That course normally runs for about $1,400. You might be able to get it for free. All you need to do is be a subscriber here at YouTube, like this video, and leave a comment. And I will regularly post the winner of the drawing at the YouTube community feed here at this YouTube channel. Do men have a wall? Yes, men have a wall. And unlike woman's wall, there is a very specific age at which they hit this wall. And it's a very different type of wall than woman's wall. The woman's wall, according to many of you, suddenly make women less attractive and so on. This wall does not make men less attractive. Instead, what it does is completely disrupts their lives, often for many decades. Many men don't even recover from hitting this wall. And the specific age for this wall, and I've talked about this specific age many times in the past in my videos and my articles, and that is age 35. At age 35, a man will typically wake up and say, oh my God, everything I've been doing is wrong. I've been way out of balance over here, so now what I need to do is go to the opposite negative extreme and do this instead. So instead of being unhappy over here in his 20s and early 30s, he jumps over here and is unhappy here for the rest of his 30s and 40s. So this video applies specifically to you men in your 20s and early 30s. You guys who have not yet hit this wall. Now this is an average. Sometimes men hit this wall sooner. Sometimes men hit this wall later. Smart men or men who plan ahead and think long term, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, never have this wall. They actually bypass this wall. It's kind of nice. I will give you several examples of how men react when they hit this wall, 35 or close to it. I will give you several examples, but I will not mention any names. As I describe these various individuals, you will know many of these people by name, people who are popular on the internet or maybe in other areas like the internet, but I'm not going to mention any names because as I describe them, you'll know who they are. Here's one example. I have seen this happen many times. You'll get a guy who comes out of the manosphere world, the pickup artist world, what have you, maybe the red pill world. He will spend his 20s and early 30s banging chicks, having sex with women all over the place. Lots of one-night stands, lots of short relationships. Maybe he has a relationship occasionally in there every once in a while, but mostly it's about racking up notch counts and banging lots of girls. And then he'll hit age 35 or close to it. And suddenly he'll say, oh my God, this is bad. I've been banging girls nonstop and I'm shallow. I'm a shallow asshole and there's no meaning to my life and I want meaning to my life and what am I doing and why did I do this and this was terrible. So what they will then do is they will go to the opposite negative extreme, and that is they will get monogamous, usually married. So these extreme level players who have had sex with hundreds of women in some cases suddenly get monogamously married. They move in with a woman or they get legally married, but in any case they move in with a woman under a monogamous arrangement. And do you think that works? No. Within a few years, it blows up in their faces. They get divorced. They have all kinds of drama. They cheat. They fight. It blows up in their face because all they've done is traded one extreme for the opposite extreme. And happiness, long-term happiness, does not exist on the extremes, as I've explained many times in the past. That's one example. Another similar example is you will have guys who go through this process. They'll go through their 20s and early 30s or so, and they'll bang a bunch of girls, and suddenly they'll hit age 35 or so, and they'll go, oh my God, I have been a bad man. I have been a bad, immoral, unethical, terrible person. And now I have to go to the opposite extreme, and I have to become a far-right evangelical Christian, or something to that effect. They go to the hard right, They take the God pill or something similar to that. I have seen guys do this and become Muslims instead. I've seen guys embrace some other sort of spirituality besides Christianity, but the Christian example is one that happens a lot. And then they go from one extreme to the opposite. Now they are completely hardcore evangelical Christians who don't even believe in having sex at all before marriage. And okay, that's another example of men's wall. I will give you yet another example. This time, instead of women, I'm going to use money. So there are guys on the internet, I'm not mentioning any names, who made a lot of money in their 20s or perhaps early 30s. A lot of money, millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they did what young men typically do when young men make a lot of money. They buy Ferraris and they buy fancy foofy houses and they go on yachts and they bang hookers and they spend a lot of money on cocaine and they're like, woo! And they show off their cool shit on their YouTube videos. Look at my Ferrari, everybody. Yeah, woo! And then they spend all this money like fucking water and then they hit 35 or around 35, early 30s, late 30s. And they go, oh my God. I've made all this money. This is bad. Money is wrong. Money is evil. Spending money is bad. I have been a dumbass. I have been a shallow prick. So I'm going to go to the opposite extreme and I'm going to live like a monk. I'm going to live in this little studio apartment with no furniture in it. And I'm going to teach everyone about being a monk and minimalism and not spending any money on anything and just sleeping on the floor and not having a bed. And in other words, again, one crazy negative extreme jumping to the opposite crazy negative extreme. And this always happens around, sometimes not exactly, but around age 35. Something magical happens to a man around age 35 where everything he has done in the prior years, he suddenly slaps out of it and says, oh my God, this is terrible. I now need to overcorrect and go to the opposite stupid extreme. I was lucky in this respect in that I entered into this world, Alpha Male 2.0 specifically, but more generally the manosphere world, the red pill world, when I was 35. So as many of you know, I spent my 20s and early 30s as a beta, monogamously married, very little game, made a high income for someone my age, but I was a beta male. And so I snapped out of that when I was early 33 or so. So it happened to me, but it happened to me in a positive way. I was living a negative life. And I moved into a very positive life at age 35. And at age 35, when I first found this world, my first entrance into this world was the pickup artist community. As a 35-year-old man, I knew, unlike most men in their 20s and early 30s, when they go into these worlds, I knew that, yes, for a while, I'm going to want to have fun and bang a lot of girls. Yes, I'm a guy. But I knew at age 35, am I going to want that forever? Am I going to be wanting to go out and do day game or night game or online dating or Tinder for the rest of my life into my 40s? 50s, 60s, 70s? No, I knew that for a while, I'm going to bang a lot of girls and have fun, and I did. I'm Black Dragon. That's what I did. I did that for years. But I knew in advance, I was thinking long term. I knew that at some point I would want to switch that and enter into something a little more stable and a little more consistent. In my case, an OLTR marriage, which I described way back in 2012, which was 8 years ago, right? And a few years after that, that's exactly what I did. Because I thought long term. So, you guys in your 20s and early 30s, I don't want you to go through what a lot of other men in this world have gone through. I don't want you to hit that wall and wake up one day and look back over your life and say, I fucked everything up. I now have to go crazy in the opposite direction and be equally unhappy, just in a different way. Which is what happens when you embrace monk mode or monk-based lifestyle or hardcore no-sex Christianity or hardcore monogamy after you've banged 150 women and you're not capable of monogamy. I don't want you to do that. I want you to be a little more balanced. I want you to be a little more rational. I want you to be happy. At Alpha Male 2.0, we talk here about long-term consistent happiness. And if you wake up one morning and decide your life is terrible, you're going to make decisions that will make you unhappy. And you've seen this over and over and over and over again in the manosphere, red pill, pickup artist world with many, many, many times with many, many people. By the way, I'm not talking about just 2 or 3 guys with these examples. I could list 12 guys right now. 12, 13 guys. If I sat down and thought about it, I'd probably come up with 20 names of men, most of whom you guys would know the names of, who went through this when they hit 35. I don't want you to do that. So here's how to not do that. Several steps. Step 1, when you're in your 20s or early 30s, realize that the way you're currently living is not the way you're always going to want to live. Young guys have a real problem with this. My goodness. You guys in your 20s and early 30s seem to think that however you're living now is the way you're going to want to live for the next 70 years of your life. And that's not True. You guys who say, you 26-year-old guys who say, I'm never getting married, literally never. I'm never going to move in with a woman. I'm always going to stay single literally for the rest of my life. I'm never going to have any kids. As I've shown many times in the past, statistically speaking, you are incorrect. You will. Come back in 25 years, and I have a feeling you may have a kid or two, and you are living with a woman, or you have lived with a woman, or something like that. You've got to recognize, no matter how strong you feel about it now, the way in which you live now, however you're living, I don't care how you're living now, the way in which you live now, you're not going to want to live that way forever. That includes you guys who are players and having sex with lots of girls and loving being single. That includes you younger guys who, God forbid, are married and monogamous and have kids. You're not going to want that forever either. Trust me. That includes you guys who are hardcore religious. That includes you guys who are hardcore atheists. The odds are very good at some point down the road in your life, 25 years from now, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, you're going to want something different. And you have to account for that in terms of your current actions today. Very, very important. Do not assume in your 20s that you're going to want in your 50s and 60s and 70s exactly what you want in your 20s. You won't. Trust me, you won't. That doesn't mean you'll radically change. I'm very similar to the guy I was in my 20s at the core, but the things I want for my life now are different than what I wanted in my 20s, even when I was 35. You're not going to want to bang girls and have one-night stands for the rest of your life. You're probably not going to want to be monogamous to the woman you're monogamous with right this second when you're 27 for the rest of your life. Just acknowledge that. I know sometimes it's painful to acknowledge these things, but it's the truth. It's called being rational. It's called thinking long-term. Number 2, for those of you in my audience, and there are a few of you, I've spoken to a few of you. Matter of fact, a few of you have signed up for the Focus program. Those of you in your 20s or early 30s who have made a lot of money, like I did in my 20s, you've made a lot of money. Don't be stupid with your money. When a young guy comes into a lot of money, the temptation is overwhelming to be really stupid with that money. Don't go out and buy a bunch of Ferraris. Don't go to Vegas and blow $200,000 in one weekend in Vegas on booze and hookers and friends and women and food. Don't do that. Don't be stupid. Don't charter the yacht. Don't go overboard with how you spend that money. You can play a little bit, that's fine. You can take 10% of your income, 20% of your income, and go play. Matter of fact, that's a good thing to do when you make a lot of money. I try to do that myself. I don't like spending a lot of money, but when I get a hunk of money, I always try to take a little percentage of it, and I do fun shit, and I spend it for fun. It's fun. I have fun with it. But not the vast majority. The vast majority of that money goes into my investments. And that's where your money should go when you're making decent, good money in your 20s and early 30s. Your decent, boring, conservative investments. Not Bitcoin. You can put some in Bitcoin, but not all of it in Bitcoin. That's just as crazy as buying Ferraris. I'm going to take my $3 million I just made and put it on Bitcoin. No. Boring investments that remain long-term with low rates of return, but they're very, very safe investments that you know for sure or with a high probability will be there in 20, 30, 40 years. I've talked about that in my other content. This is not a video on investing. Just don't be stupid when you have a lot of money or make a lot of money in your early 20s. You will regret it. By the way, I personally know guys who made a lot of money in their 20s or 30s and they blew it all. And by the time they hit 35, they were poor and they never really recovered. They never really made the money back. So that's another danger. You spend all that money, you may not get the money back. There are a lot of guys who made a lot of money doing like Facebook ads a few years ago, and then Facebook changed the algorithm and suddenly all their money vanished. So you got to be very careful about this. Be prudent with your money if you make a lot of money before the age of 35. That way, when you hit the wall, you won't go, oh my God, I spent all this money. I'm so stupid. You won't have that problem if you're prudent to begin with. Number 3, try when you're in your 20s or early 30s, and do this on paper or a Word document, try to think through what kind of life you will want when you are my age, when you're almost 50. Let's say when you're 50. So if you're 27 or 31, forget about what you want right now. That's easy. What kind of life do you think you want to live when you're 50? So that means in 25 to 30 years from now. What kind of life will you want to live then? 25, 35, 20 years, somewhere there. My math is bad. You get my point. What kind of life do you think you'd like to live in your 50s? And think hard. Am I really going to want to bang women in Ukraine and have nonstop one-night stands when I'm 57? Probably not. So if the answer is probably not, then what is it? Well, I'll probably want something like this. You don't have to be exact. It's hard to figure out what you'll want in 30 years, 20 years, 25 years. It's hard. Like I said, it's hard, but do it. I've done this. I've planned ahead as best as I can in terms of general ideas, what I may want 30 years from now, 25 years from now, 20 years ago. I've done this several times in my life. I mean, if I did it recently. So that means for me, I'll be 70 in my 70s. What kind of life will I want in my 70s? I know. I have a decent idea of what that life will be. Will it be exactly what I'm doing now? No. No, I'm 48, so it's going to be different. Just get a hold of your long-term future. The reason guys hit this wall at 35 and fuck up their lives is because they're not thinking long-term. That's the number one reason. These guys making tons of money in their 20s and buying Ferraris and hookers and cocaine are not thinking long-term. These guys who are 32 years old or 28 years old, traveling the world, banging women, nonstop one-night stands, are not thinking long-term. They're thinking about what I want now. You need to start thinking about what you're going to want in the long-term future. Even if you change your mind. Well, what if I change my mind? You probably will change your mind, and that's okay. Don't worry about it. Change your mind. Just get an idea for a general path that you need to take long-term. If you can't determine what you're going to want later in life, how the hell are you going to make a path for long-term happiness? You can't do it. You've got to get out of your head in terms of where you are right now as a young man. You're not always going to be a young man. Believe me. And the old age comes faster than you think. You'll blink and you'll be 50. You'll blink and you'll be my age. And be like, holy shit, what happened? That's how it works. Last item, number 4. Always think long-term and ask yourself this question. How do my current actions and current skill sets, how will they help me in terms of what I want long-term? So for example, let's say you are a hardcore pickup artist, one-night stand player guy. That's fine. Nothing, by the way, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with banging lots of girls in your 20s. That's great. I wish I did that in my 20s. I did that in my 30s and early 40s. But great, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm saying you're not going to want that forever. And if you don't plan for the fact that you're going to want something different, you're going to hit that wall when you hit 35. So you need to sit down and think about, what skill sets am I now developing? How will they help me later in life? What patterns and habits that I'm developing now, how will they benefit me later in life? Or will they harm me later in life? So let's say in the back of your mind, and I've seen guys do this, way in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, maybe I'll get married someday. Yeah, okay, married. When I say married, I mean traditionally monogamously married, the type of marriage you shouldn't do. I might get married someday, yeah, but until then, I'm going to fuck 180 women. Okay, so if you have the habit of having sex with 180 different women, how well do you think you'll do in a long-term monogamous marriage or relationship where you're only allowed to have sex with one woman for the rest of your life? Or for many, many, many years. How well do you think you'll do? You're going to do terribly. I see alpha male 1.0s all the time blow up in their monogamous relationships because they've established the precedent of having sex with lots of girls. You see how this works? See how this all ties back together? Same thing with your financial habits. If I regularly spend everything I earn, especially if it's stupid shit like Lamborghinis, how is that going to harm me or help me later in life, long term? You've got to start training your brain to think long-term. I've talked about on my podcasts several times how I am always thinking in terms of the myself 5 years from now, the 5-year in the future version of myself. And I'm always remembering that guy, always. Not quite every day, but at least every week. I am always thinking about, what am I doing now to help that guy 5 years from now? So I'm 48, that would be the guy who's 53. The 53-year-old version of me is someone I think about a lot. I want that guy to be really, really, really happy. The main reason I am so happy and I live such a great life today at age 48 is because when I was 43, I was thinking about how I wanted to be happy when I was 48. I wasn't thinking about the 43-year-old version of me. I was constantly thinking about the 48 version of me. Me. I was thinking about me 5 years ago. Today, I'm thinking about myself 5 years from now. I'm always trying to train my brain to think long term. And if you don't think long-term in your 20s or early 30s, you're going to hit that wall, and boy, are you going to have problems. You're going to have divorces. I've seen guys go through divorces. I've seen guys go through religious chaos. I've seen guys go through bankruptcies in their mid-30s when they hit this wall and they go crazy because the way they've lived is not the way they wanted, and they weren't thinking long-term. The more you think long-term, the less likely this problem is to happen to you when you hit 35. Now, you guys over the age of 35, this also applies to you, not quite as much because most guys post 35 usually have themselves kind of figured out. It takes about, in my opinion, about 30, 35 years to figure yourself out anyway. You don't really have yourself completely figured out, in my opinion, until you're early to mid 30s. For most men, there are exceptions. So if you're over the age of 35, you still need to think long term. I am way over the age of 35, and I'm still thinking long term myself because I want to make sure that I'm happy for the rest of my life. So you older guys, this applies to you too, although not as much. You younger guys, think about what I said. I'm not kidding. You don't want to go through this. If you want more help from me personally to develop an Alpha Male 2.0 life so you can be long-term happy, enrollment is open right now for the Alpha Male 2.0 Focus Program. The link is in the description below. That's where I coach with you personally, one-on-one for an entire year, plus a small group of guys. Plus you have all of my courses. You get all my courses and all my books for free. Link is below. Otherwise, you can watch this video here on the woman's wall that I did a while ago, or click here to determine whether or not Alpha Male 2.0 is selfish. I will see you very soon. Bye.